Hello, everyone. Before sharing this story, I must speak openly. I want to talk sincerely, from my heart. This is not a video about grammar tips. It has no lists of vocabulary. It is not about some secret trick. It is not a method to speak English in 30 days. This video is about something more real. It is a story of pain and promise. It is also a story of power, because you may have felt too scared to speak. You may have felt small in a room of confident people. You may have stayed quiet, not for a lack of words. You were silent because you could not say them in English. If so, then this story is your story too. You will not just watch my journey. You will truly feel it, because I was exactly like you. This is how I transformed. I was once afraid to speak a single sentence. Today, I speak English with confidence. Not perfectly, but with freedom. And the best part is this. I had no teacher guiding me. I went to no coaching classes. I had no friends who could speak English. But I possessed something else. I had a reason, a fire, and a personal promise. In this video, you will see inside my life. I will reveal every step to you. You will see the hard days and the lonely nights. You will witness the shame and the failures. And you will see how that all became strength, how it turned into confidence and real fluency. You will discover how to begin your journey alone. I will show you how I trained myself without classes. You will see how English became part of my life. I will explain how I continued when I wanted to quit. And you can start doing the same thing today. Most importantly, you will learn this truth. You do not need confidence to start. You just need to actually begin. If you watch until the end, I promise this. Your view of English will change forever, because my story could also be yours. Let us begin. Part 1. The Promise. My name is Adam. I am 19. My hometown is very small. It is a place where people do not dream big. My father is a mechanic who fixes cars. My mother works as a housemaid. We did not have much money. We had no smartphones, no internet, and no English books. We only spoke our local language at home. When I was growing up, English seemed like a rich person's language. I saw fluent people smiling on TV. I always thought that could never be me. In school, my English reading was good, but I froze when the teacher asked me to speak. My mouth would become dry. My heart would beat so fast. I remember one specific day in class. I was told to say just one sentence. My name is Adam, and I want to be a teacher. That was all. But I could not do it. I just stood there, shaking. The entire class laughed at me. That day, something inside me shattered. It was not just because of the laughter. It was because I had words to say, but I could not get them out. I walked home alone that night. I spoke to nobody. The sound of laughter just kept echoing in my head. I saw my reflection in a shop window. I whispered, "One day, I will speak English. I do not care how long it takes. I do not care how hard it is. I will do it." That was the moment the promise was made. I did not tell a single person, not my parents and not my friends. This was my war, my mountain to climb. It was my own secret mission. From that day forward, I decided to train myself. There would be no coaching and no teachers. It would be just me and my voice. And that is how my journey started. It began with one single promise, a lonely promise made by a 19-year-old boy. He had no idea what he was doing, but he had something stronger than fear. He made the decision to never be silent again. This was only the beginning. Part 2. The struggle begins. After making that promise, I felt strong, but that feeling lasted for only one day. The next morning, I woke up early. I washed my face and stood before the mirror. I said, "Today I will start speaking English." But no words came out. My mind was completely blank. My throat felt closed. Even though I was alone, I felt watched. I felt judged by myself. I tried to say something very simple. Just one sentence. "How are you?" But it felt like pushing a heavy rock. It felt so hard to get the words out of my mouth. I realized something painful that day. Learning English is not just about words. It is also about fear. And that fear lives inside your body. My hands were sweating. I felt so stupid. I thought, why is this so hard? I know these words. Why can't I say them? Quote, "That day, I recorded my own voice. I used my father's old phone. I tried to say, 'My name is Adam. I want to learn English.' I recorded it. Then I listened to it. When I heard my own voice, I wanted to delete it. I wanted it gone immediately. It did not sound like me at all. It sounded broken, slow, and full of shame. I was pausing in all the wrong places. My pronunciation was incorrect. I sounded like someone who did not belong. And then I suddenly started to cry. It was not because my English was bad. It was because I was hearing my own fear. I heard it with my own ears for the first time. I could not sleep that night. My brain kept saying one thing. You are not good enough. You will never be fluent. The next morning, I considered quitting. I thought this was a stupid idea. Maybe English was not meant for me. But then the promise came back to me, that quiet promise from the shop window. That promise I made walking home in silence. So I chose to try again. This time, I changed my approach. I did not try to speak perfect English. I just tried to speak one sentence with feeling, not grammar, just pure feeling. I looked in the mirror and said this, "I want to be better." That was it. The sentence was not complicated. It was not even about English. But I said it with real emotion and truth. And for the very first time, I did not feel weak. That one sentence became my daily routine. Every day, I would wake up 15 minutes early. I would lock the bathroom door. And I would speak to myself out loud, even if I only said 2 or 3 lines. Sometimes I said, "Today will be a good day. I am trying my best. English is not my enemy. I can learn it. I can learn even if I am slow." At school, nothing changed on the outside. I was still quiet in my class. I still avoided having conversations. I did not raise my hand for questions. But something had shifted inside me. No one else could see it. But I had started my own private war. And every sentence I spoke alone was a victory. It was a small win in that war. But I must be honest with you, those early days were not beautiful. They were filled with so much pain. People do not talk about that part enough. They do not tell you how it feels. To try your absolute best and still be invisible. To practice speaking alone for weeks. And then fail again in a real situation. This happened to me after 2 weeks. I had been practicing with the mirror. I was at the small grocery store near my home. A man from the city was visiting. He was speaking English to the shop owner's son. That boy had attended a better school. I just stood there, frozen. Then, for a moment, the man looked at me. He said, "Hey, buddy, where's the main road?" It was a very simple question. I had practiced similar questions in the mirror, but in real life, my mouth would not move. I looked at him. After 2 long seconds of silence, I just shook my head. I said nothing. He smiled politely and then asked someone else. Nobody cared, but I did. I walked back home feeling completely crushed. All that practice in front of the mirror, and I had still failed. I wanted to throw my notebook away. I wanted to stop speaking completely. I thought maybe I was just pretending. Perhaps this whole thing was a lie. That night, there was no practice. I just sat in my bed and stared at the ceiling. I asked myself, am I fooling myself? What if I never get better? Quote. But the next morning, I faced the mirror again. Not because I felt strong. I did it because I had promised myself something. I promised that I would not stop, even if it hurt, even if no one believed in me, even if I failed 100 times. Because deep down, I knew this was the only way. And so I began once more. This time, I was slower and more honest. I was more real. That is when I learned something vital, and I want you to remember this. Fluency is not about speaking fast. Fluency is about being brave every single day. Even when your voice is shaking, even when you fail, even when there is no applause. That truth became the fuel for my next step, and what happened after that changed everything. That morning, looking in the mirror was different. No, I did not suddenly speak any better. My pronunciation did not magically improve, and I was not full of confidence. But a decision had been made in my heart. It was something unbreakable. I told myself that from now on I would do this. I will speak English every single day, even if it is only for 5 minutes, even if my English is broken, even if nobody listens. Because I am not doing this for anyone else. I am doing this for ME. That was the start of my English ritual, a quiet war won fought in a small room. But it was a war that changed my life forever. Every evening after dinner, I would go to my room. There was no noise, no internet, no books. Just me and a small mirror on the wall. And then I would start talking. I did not follow a big English program. I did not watch expensive video tutorials. I just spoke. Some days, I started with a simple line. Hi, Adam. How was your day? Quote. And I would give myself an answer. My day was okay. I went to school. I was tired, but I am proud of myself. I am proud because I am still trying. Every day I tried speaking for at least 10 minutes. At first it felt very awkward and unnatural. It was so slow. I had to think before every single word. But I never missed a day. Not one. It became a habit, like brushing my teeth. If I did not speak English that day, I felt unclean. Then a strange thing began to happen after 3 weeks. I noticed my brain was slowly changing. One night, as I was lying in bed, I realized something. It was shocking. I had been thinking in English without trying. I was planning my words for the next day, and my thoughts were in English. That was the moment I cried again. But this time, the tears were not from sadness. It was because I felt like I was winning. No one else could see this victory. No one else would clap for it. But inside me, there was a quiet celebration. I was no longer just a boy trying to speak English. I was becoming a boy who lives in English. I built my own practice system using nothing but my voice. I could not afford classes, so I had to create my own structure. I made 3 speaking zones for each day. Zone 1 was morning self-talk for 2 minutes. While brushing my teeth or washing my face, I said things. Today is a new day. I will speak English. I am not afraid. My name is Adam. I am strong. I am learning. These were not complex sentences, but they gave me real power. Zone 2 was evening mirror practice. This was for 10 to 15 minutes. This was my main training time. Each day, I chose a small topic, nothing too difficult. For example, I would talk about my school day. I would describe what I ate for lunch. I would talk about my mother or a favorite memory. I would imagine my dream job and what it would be. I would stand before the mirror and just talk. At first, I used very broken English. Half of my words were probably wrong, but I kept going. Because I knew fluent people are not perfect, they are just consistent. Zone 3 was whisper practice before sleep. This lasted 2 to 3 minutes. Before I closed my eyes, I would lie in bed. I would whisper 3 to 5 sentences about anything. I remember one night I whispered this. I love this language. I do not know why, but I feel alive when I speak it. That sentence has stayed with me forever. After a few weeks of daily practice, something else happened. When I looked at objects, my brain did something, like a chair, a pen, or a tree. My brain started saying their names in English. It happened automatically, not because I forced it. It happened because repetition planted those words. They were planted deep inside my brain. I was slowly building my mental English map. I no longer had to translate everything. I did not need to go from my language to English. I began to understand ideas directly in English. This is called thinking in English. And it is not a miracle, it is the result of daily effort. It comes from an emotional connection and no skipping. One evening, something powerful happened. I was sitting with my little cousin. He was playing with a toy and he asked me something. "What is this?" I casually replied, "That's a train. It goes fast. Choo-choo." And then I paused. I had just spoken 3 full sentences in English. I did it without thinking, fear, or shame. That moment broke something inside me. It did not break my confidence. It broke my limits. I realized I was not just learning English anymore. I was now becoming a person who lives in English. People think fluency is about speaking fast. No, fluency is about feeling free. I was still making many mistakes. I still had my accent. I still did not know many big words. But I did not care, because English was no longer just a subject. It was my language of personal growth. It was my private world. It was my way of changing my own life. Word by word, sentence by sentence. And the best part was this. I did all of this alone at home, without a teacher, without fear, without quitting, because I believed one thing deeply. If I speak every day, my brain will learn, my confidence will grow, and my future will change. And that belief was about to be tested. It would be tested in a very unexpected way. Part 3. The Small Wins. After weeks of speaking alone, I was stronger. But this strength was only on the inside. I could now speak 10 to 15 sentences. I could do it without stopping. I could describe my day, my feelings, and my dreams. Mistakes were still being made, but I was no longer afraid of them. But deep down, I knew something was missing. I was still hiding. All my English practice was private. It was like a secret. It was time to face the real world. I wanted to practice with other people, but I was so afraid. There was a small community center nearby. It was 3 kilometers from my home. They had free English practice sessions on weekends. They were not formal classes. They were just open groups for learners to talk. I had heard about it many times, but I never had the courage to go. What if they laughed at me? What if I forgot all my words? What if I stood there frozen again? These questions haunted me. But one Sunday morning, I put on a clean shirt. I combed my hair and walked there alone. My legs felt very heavy. Every step felt like walking into a fire. But I did not stop. I finally reached the room. There were about 7 or 8 people. They were sitting in a circle. Some were reading from papers. Some were practicing greetings. One girl was nervously introducing herself. The coordinator smiled at me. He said, "New face. You want to join?" I just nodded. My mouth was too dry to speak. I sat quietly in a corner and listened. Everyone was nervous. Everyone was making mistakes. But nobody was laughing. That gave me some hope. After 20 minutes, the coordinator looked at me. He said, "Would you like to introduce yourself?" In that moment, it felt like the world stopped. My heart started beating so fast. My throat felt tight. My palms were wet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. But then I remembered my mirror. I remembered my room and the promise. So I stood up. I took a slow, deep breath and said this. "Hello, my name is Adam. I am 19 years old. I love English. I want to speak better. I am learning alone." Then there was silence for 3 seconds. No one said anything. And then they clapped. They clapped. Not because my English was perfect, not because it was advanced, but because it was real. That applause lasted only 5 seconds. But inside of me it felt like fireworks. That was my first public victory. I had spoken English in front of people, and I survived. That moment became a turning point for my confidence. It was not about fluency or grammar, it was about pure courage. For the next 30 minutes, I did not speak again. I just listened. But my mind had changed forever. Now I knew I could do this. I can speak even with fear. I can speak even with broken sentences. I started going every Sunday, and every week I grew a little more. In the beginning, I still said very little. Sometimes it was just 2 or 3 lines. But each week, I challenged myself. I tried to say one more sentence than the last time. One week, I described my favorite food. Another week, I spoke about my parents. Once, I shared how I was practicing alone with a mirror. A few people smiled. One said, "That's brave. I should try that too." That was the first time I felt like a helper. I was not just a learner anymore. It completely changed my identity. One day, I went to the grocery shop again, the same shop where I had failed before. This time, I saw a foreign tourist. He was asking for water, but no one understood him. I walked up to him slowly. I said, "You want a bottle of water?" He said, "Yes, please. Thank you." I showed him the bottle and took the money. Then I gave him the change. He smiled and said, "Your English is good." I did not say much back, just a smile. But inside, I was flying. Every sentence I spoke outside my room was a huge achievement. It felt like climbing a mountain. And these victories were not loud. No one shared them on the internet. No one recorded them or used hashtags. But they were real. Every sentence was a step away from fear. Every word was a brick in the house I was building. The house was called confidence. One night, I sat alone and wrote in my diary. Today I spoke to a stranger. He understood me. That means I am not invisible anymore. I closed the book and cried. These were not tears of sadness. They were from belief. Because for the very first time, I felt something. Maybe, just maybe, I was becoming the person I always wanted to be. And that, my friend, is the most powerful shift. It is not when you finally become fluent. It is when you stop feeling ashamed of not being fluent yet. Because the moment you stop hiding, the moment you stop apologizing, the moment you say, yes, I make mistakes, but I am speaking anyway, that is the moment you start to win. That is the moment the world starts to hear you. And I was ready for more. Almost 3 months had passed since I made the promise. 3 months of mirror practice, 3 months of whispering words in the dark. 3 months of slow confidence and small wins. By now I felt like I belonged. I could hold a short conversation. I was joining the Sunday group with confidence. I even started helping others who were more shy than me. But then something happened that shook everything. It was a small marketing company. They needed students for basic research and office work. The requirement was simple. You needed basic English communication skills. When I saw the poster, I was excited. This was my chance. It was a chance to practice real English. It was a chance to work in a real office. A chance to earn something. A chance to show my parents I was growing. So I applied. I filled out the form. I prepared my introduction. I practiced for 4 nights in a row. I stood before the mirror, repeating my lines. Hello, my name is Adam. I'm passionate about learning and growing. I may not be perfect, but I believe in showing up. I even rehearsed possible interview questions. What are your strengths? Why do you want this job? What makes you a good fit? I wrote down my answers. I practiced them 20 times. I believed I was ready. I arrived early for the interview. My shirt was clean. My shoes were polished by me. My hands were shaking, but I kept whispering. You've got this, Adam. You have worked for this. You have spoken to real people. You are ready. When they called my name, I walked in. There were 2 people, a man and a woman. They smiled, and the man said this. Hi, Adam. Please sit. Let's begin. Tell us about yourself. I opened my mouth to speak, and nothing came out. My mind went completely blank. Every word I had practiced was gone. I could not breathe. My mouth was dry. I was suddenly that same scared boy from school. The silence only lasted for 6 seconds, but in my heart it felt like a storm. Finally I said, I want job because I like learn. My sentence was broken. My voice was shaking. I could see the woman trying to be kind, but her eyes showed she was concerned. The man said, take your time. It's okay. But I knew it was not okay. This was not just an interview. This was my test, and I was failing. The rest of the interview was just as bad. I could not connect my sentences. I forgot simple words. I used the wrong verb tenses. And worst of all, I could not look them in the eyes. After 15 minutes, they said this. Thank you for coming, Adam. We'll let you know. I smiled politely and walked out. The moment I reached the gate, I broke down. I cried because I felt like a liar. All my effort felt like a lie. 3 months of practice and hope. 3 months of whispering dreams into a mirror. And still, when it mattered most, I froze. I walked home with my head held down. I did not eat that night. I did not touch my diary. I did not go near the mirror. I felt like a fraud. I felt like someone just pretending to learn, someone who could not use English when it counted. That night, I wanted to quit. I skipped my mirror practice. I did not speak a single English word. I did not even watch English videos. I just lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling. I heard my own inner voice. You are not improving. You are just wasting time. You will never be fluent. You will always be behind. For the first time on my journey, I felt empty. But then something small saved me. It was not a video or a book. It was not a friend. It was a note I had written for myself. I wrote it on the very first day of my journey. I had taped it to the side of my desk. I had forgotten about it. It said, "No matter how slow you go, you are still winning. You are winning as long as you do not stop." I read that line 10 times. Then, something inside me whispered, "Adam, this is not the end. This is just a test." I was not afraid of English. I was afraid of being judged. In front of the mirror, I was safe. With friends, I felt comfortable. But in a professional room, my fear returned. Because I still believed that mistakes were bad. I thought a mistake meant I did not belong. That belief was the real enemy, not English. So I decided to do something big. The next day, I stood before the mirror again. But this time, I did not rehearse lines. I spoke from my heart. I am not perfect. I am not fluent. But I am brave. I will face this again, and I will be better next time. I made one more promise to myself. I will never stop just because I fail. Because failure does not mean I am weak. It means I am trying something hard. The moment I walked into the group, I told them. I told them about the interview. I told them how I froze and forgot my words. I told them how I almost quit. And then I said, "But I am still here. I still want to speak, and I will not stop." They clapped louder than ever before. One man stood up and said something. "You did not fail, Adam. You grew. Because now you are honest." That is real progress. Those words healed something in me, not just mirror speaking or repeating words, but doing small, real-life English actions, asking strangers for directions in English, saying thank you in English to shopkeepers, recording daily updates on my phone in English, reading short paragraphs out loud, then explaining them to myself. I turned English into a lifestyle, not just a subject. Because this journey was never about being the best. It was about never being silent again. And now I was ready to rise higher than before. Part 4. From Silence to Strength. The day I spoke without fear, everything changed. After the failed interview and the emotional breakdown, after the promise to never quit, I returned to my journey, stronger than ever. But I was not just stronger, I was also wiser. Because now I understood my real enemy. It was never English, it was my fear. And that fear lived in the silence between thoughts. Every time I spoke, I was not just using language, I was fighting my fear. I did not need to sound perfect, I just needed to sound brave. And that new mindset changed everything. One evening, my group coordinator spoke to me. He said, "Adam, next Sunday we have an event. It is an open English-speaking event. Visitors from the city will be joining. We want you to give the welcome speech." I froze for a moment. Me? The same boy who could not say his name in class. He said, "You have been consistent. You have grown. You have a story, and people need to hear it." I did not say yes right away. That night, I stood before my mirror again. My oldest friend and my oldest teacher. I looked at my reflection and asked a question. "Are you ready?" Quote. And for the first time in my life, my reflection smiled. "No one is ever ready. You just speak anyway." So I said yes. I did not rehearse every word like a robot. Instead, I focused on building confidence. I did not write a full script. I only wrote down some bullet points. My journey from fear to English. Why I started my journey. What kept me going, what I want others to feel. Every night, I practiced small parts in the mirror. Every morning, I did a 5-minute voice warm-up. Every afternoon, I told myself one sentence. You are not here to impress, you are here to express. That sentence became my anchor. There were about 40 people in the hall. Half were learners like me. Half were professionals and guests. Some were wearing suits. Some had notepads. Everyone looked confident. And I was holding the microphone. My heart was beating faster than ever. My hands were shaking a little bit. But I remembered something important. I was not there as a perfect speaker. I was there as a living example of what is possible. I walked to the stage. I looked around the room and then I began. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam. A few months ago, I could not say even this line. I could not say it without fear. But today I stand here because I did not give up. There was silence. Everyone was listening. I come from a place where English is not common. I did not have a teacher or coaching. All I had was a mirror and a promise. I told them everything. My mirror practice, my failures, the frozen interview, the nights I cried, the sentence that changed my mindset. I was not reading from a piece of paper. I was speaking from my own story. And when I said this line, people reacted. Fluency is not about sounding like someone else. It is about sounding like yourself without fear. Some people in the audience nodded. Some smiled. Some closed their eyes and breathed deeply. In that moment, I was not just Adam. I was the voice of every learner who stayed silent. If you are learning English and you are afraid, that is normal. I was afraid too. But speak anyway. Speak even if your voice shakes. Speak even if you make mistakes. Because every sentence you speak is a victory. It is a victory over your fear. And one day you will speak like you have always belonged. Not because you are perfect, but because you never quit. When I finished speaking, the room was silent. And then came the applause. It was not polite applause. It was real, deep, emotional applause. I did not cry on the stage. But when I walked out of that room, I sat under a tree. And I let the tears fall, because I had done it. The boy who once hid in silence had spoken. He had spoken to a room full of people. He spoke with truth, power, and freedom. I am no longer learning English. I am now living in English. That sentence was not about fluency. It was about identity. I no longer saw myself as being behind others. I saw myself as someone walking his own road with courage. And now, if you are still listening to my story, I want to speak to you. I do not know your name. I do not know where you live. I do not know how many times you have failed or cried. But I do know this. If I can speak English, then so can you. Not because I am smarter or had better tools, but because I decided to keep speaking. I spoke even when no one was listening. And that is what you must do. Here are the final lessons I want you to remember. 1. Your fear is real, but it is not permanent. Every sentence you speak makes it smaller. 2. You do not need fancy words. You need honest practice. 3. English is not just a language. It is a tool for freedom. The freedom to express, to grow, and to be heard. 4. You will fail. You will freeze. You will forget. But none of that means you are not learning. It just means you are human. 5. Speak every single day, even for 5 minutes. Speak even to yourself. Speak even if no one understands you yet. Because one day, that day will come. You will speak to someone, and they will understand. Not just your words, but your journey. And in that moment, you will know it was all worth it. And before you go, if this story touched you, if you saw a part of yourself in my journey, then this is not the end. This is your beginning. Do not let this just be a story you watched. Let this be a spark to start your own. And if you want more stories like this one, if you want to grow with me and learn with me, if you want to walk this path together, then please subscribe to this channel. Because here, We do not just teach English. We believe in you, even when you do not, and we will remind you every day. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to begin. Thank you for listening. This was my story. And now it is your turn. Speak.